Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Pakistan for Us today. And today I have somebody extremely special for this episode. And she's actually one of my inspirations in the corporate world. When I had entered the corporate world, I was working at Nestle and I used to see her and I used to aspire to be like her. Right now, she is the CEO of Air Asia Move. And without wasting more time, I want to welcome Nadia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure being here.
Nadia, so I just want to know more about your journey, your corporate journey, your professional journey, your accomplishments.
So, Anam, mine is not a very traditional journey. So I'll talk a little bit about, growing up. I had a working mom. So my mom used to teach at that time. And in the 80s, if you were a child whose mom is working, and I come from a military background, a bit conservative, you hear a lot from other kids and other moms, which makes you feel as if, being a working woman is about not being a good mother or a good homemaker. So I'll say that it did have a big impact on me. And I tried my level best not to be in the corporate world. So what did I do? Like right after my metric, I changed my subjects to fine arts, French literature, and economics. And I told everybody that I just wanted to do something that I'm able to continue even after marriage and with kids. So I wanted to do fine arts. A year into it, I got so bored as a sciences student that the next year I appeared for maths, stats, economics, both years together. And what I realized was that even though I wanted to be a great homemaker, but my calling in terms of interest was towards mathematics and business studies and stuff. So I then accepted myself and then moved towards this career goal. And and even then I said, look, my focus is going to be a good homemaker. So in between my MBA, I got married. So first year into LUMS, I got married. And it was very tough doing my last year split between two cities and commuting and being married into a new relationship, in-laws, relatives, all of those things. When we graduated, all of my friends started their career, and I was expecting at that time, and I didn't work. I didn't work for the next 2 years till my daughter was 2 years old. And that's when I started my career again. And that was also another reflection point because I thought that once I got married and maybe I had a kid, there would be no desire to work. And what I realized very ashamedly at that time was that even though I had a kid and I really loved spending that time, I felt there was something missing. I felt I was missing my own identity. And I saw that my husband continued to grow, learn new things and stuff, while I just became stagnant. And this is the reason I started my career again with PNG, which in Karachi at that time was one of the few companies that offered a daycare facility. And that's why I started over there. So you can see that I've been fighting it, and every time I fight it, I realize something about myself, and it takes me a bit of time to accept myself that way and also explain it to, my loved ones, like my husband, that this is something that I would like to do because he had to pitch in quite a bit. So, when you decide to work, the biggest impact it takes is on your husband's life and your kids. And those are the two partners that you need for your career journey. And it has been a discovery for me since then. And there onwards, I followed my husband as the lead career. And some places I got an opportunity, other places I did not get an opportunity. For example, coming to Lahore, my husband was in Pepsi. And the other three big companies, were there are Nestle and Coke. So Pepsi said, look, we're not going to hire you. It's a small company. There's conflict of interest. Coke said, sorry, you were in Pepsi, there's conflict of interest. Nestle said, sorry, we cannot even hire you because there's conflict of interest. And I'm like, how? It is like, oh, water and juices. I said, okay. So then I set up my own consultancy because I said the most important thing is that I continue to grow. So even if
Mhm.
nobody's hiring me, I set up my own consultancy and did a lot of youth researches. And with those youth researches, Nestle came in and wanted me to help them with the launch of Nescafe in Pakistan. So a lot of ethnographic research happened. And surprisingly, 2 years of working with Nestle, next thing I know, I get the offer of marketing manager for juices. The same portfolio, they felt that there would be conflict of interest. They felt so comfortable with me that they gave me that portfolio. And those next 2 years, myself and my husband, we basically lived a life like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, because he was in franchise bevs and I was on juices. And this is the time when Nesfruta and Tropicana were being launched. So we would only figure out when things would hit the market. And I would go for a market visit to Gujranwala and like, oh my God, you expanded distribution to Gujranwala. Or say when the new Fruta Vitals pack was launched in black, I remember going for groceries and he's just looking there like, you did that? I said, yeah. And so we were very, very quiet about it, and things would reveal in the market. So that's a different way of enjoying it. And there onwards, then my husband moved to Thailand. I thought I would get a job at Nestle here, but it was difficult. But the good thing was Pepsi actually had a job offer for me. So you can see that it's so strange that the same companies that told me there would be a conflict of interest, but as I grew myself as a professional, as they got to know me better, they started trusting and I got that opportunity. So I got the opportunity to work in the regional team, first time outside of Pakistan with Pepsi. It was a great portfolio. It just set me in a different frame. And from there, then I went to the startup called Scars 24. This was the first time I changed a job because of me. Every other job that I changed was because my husband moved. So this was the first move I made for myself. And I did it, as I said, so that I do not become a dinosaur, because marketing is changing. And FMCG marketing is pretty dated now. And I wanted to move towards e-commerce, and it gave me a new leash of life, actually. So 2 years into this startup, I got this wonderful opportunity to head AirAsia Move, the travel platform for AirAsia, which is present in Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, China, India, and Australia. And it's a startup which is bottom line positive, and the investment is mostly the own companies. So it's a phenomenal area to be in, where you're not bleeding money, you are creating value. The mandate is so huge, and also that you have the choice where to invest, because sometimes the dilution is so much for the founders that they really don't have a voice by the time they've raised enough funds. So this has been my journey till now.
So, Nadia, the two key things that I pick up from your journey, one is that you always kept going, right? Even if your husband was moving, changing cities, changing countries, it never stopped you from finding, work that motivated you. And
Hmm.
secondly, you faced a dilemma in the beginning of your career that, you wanted to be a very good mother, but also you wanted to succeed in life, and you sort of tried to suppress it. But the more you suppressed it, you sort of realized that that was your calling,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
So
that is true.
now, mashallah, in my opinion, you're so accomplished. Like I look at, you, and I look up to you actually, and I feel like, this is something, I should
Thank you,
follow her
Anam.
career, her path. But how do you define success? Like, do you feel accomplished now? Did you feel, a little bogged down in the middle job, when you had to lose your job because your husband was moving, or आपकी family आपकी priority थी तो आपने छोड़ दिया वो काम? Did
Hmm.
you feel like, you were let down, by your own self? So how did you manage to, deal with that and still kept going?
So, Sanam, for me, I think two things give me meaning in life. I think, or at least help me cope and understand what is happening. Certain things we control, others we don't control. So, the first one is I like to have a sense of being useful. I don't know competent, but being useful. And it's all about value creation. So I like to be in places where I can learn and I can add value. So that's why, young, bustling brands and categories is something that I love, because there's a lot of growth opportunity over there. And then it's not just about, this corporate work. Like when I was to set up my own company, the seed funding actually came from a series of clothing exhibits that I did amongst my circle of friends. And what I learned from that was that I can always earn money, whether it is through dress designing or something else. I will be able to earn money, and which is very important. I think as a woman, economic independence is a very important part of it. So being useful and being able to earn money able to, at least, I think is very important, that you can support yourself and also your kids. That helps you because life is unpredictable. You don't know what the circumstances will be in the future for you, for your husband. And I also feel that the reason for being in a relationship should not be because you cannot be outside. Yeah, so for many women in Pakistan, that's one of the key considerations. They can be in very toxic or abusive relationships because they are so economically dependent. So this is one area which I think is very important: being useful, being able to create value, and being able to earn for yourself and your own kids. That is, I think, if God has sent you in this world, you should be able to do that. And the second one is that this belief in this faith that what is meant for you will come.
Mhm.
So you don't need to take any shortcuts, and just make sure that you continue to grow, and when the right opportunity will come, and it will come. All of us get enough opportunities from God. It's just that whether we are ready to take it on or not. And that reduces a lot of this anxiety, I feel, which one feels when you feel trapped. So know that there is something written for you, and it will come your way. You don't know how it will happen. Look how strange my story is as well. I didn't know this path. I could not even foresee this, but it happened. So these two things are important: value creation and belief that what is to come, what is to be yours will come to you.
So, value creation could be in anything, right? It shouldn't be attached to a
Yes.
particular designation or it shouldn't be attached
No.
to a particular role, right? Because
No.
otherwise, to you'll be stuck with that role forever, right?
Yes. Yes. And that by itself can become like something, a trap. I think to
Mm-hmm.
be able to take decisions independently, it is important that we are not held hostage to anything, whether it is the title or the benefits that we get or the salary that we get. So it is extremely important that as a person, we are not held hostage by any of these things, or the emotional blackmail of family members or anything. And I think that's really important in life.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, Nadia, that I recently, so I moved to the US right now. I
Hmm.
have studied here. I have had some exposure, but a lot of girls in Pakistan have not had that exposure.
Hmm.
And they're just taught in a way what exactly you said, that they cannot be good mothers and good
Hmm.
wives if they're working full time.
Hmm.
And there is still a lot of discussion even happening here.
Hmm.
I see in the States that, if you're giving all of your time to your job, then the child will obviously suffer. There is
Hmm.
some level of suffering. Do you agree with
Hmm.
that?
So, look, I do believe that uh, time does matter. You can see it with your kids, you can see it with yourself. Like I'll explain to you, the days that I used to come home early, I could see the joy in my kids. And the days that I was traveling and I would come back, they would find some reason to fight or cry because, inside they were overwhelmed because they didn't see their mom for a few days. It does impact. And I know that because my mom was also working. So I know the feeling it is to come home to a house that has a mother there. So there is no denying the fact that there's no replacement for the love, care, and attention and the safety that a child feels when the mom is around. I do feel that with the work from home type of arrangement, especially in the nascent years, the first 5 years are critical for a child. At that time, it can make a big difference, and women may not have to make those type of drastic choices between work and family. And as a working mom, that means that I have to, like, maybe a lot of self time has to be contributed towards the kids, making sure that I'm able to spend time with them and listen to what's happening. So I have less time, so I have to make sure that it counts, and I will have to
Mm-hmm.
possibly compromise on the social life. So you have multiple balls to juggle. So you have work, you have social life, you have family. Difficult to do all of these. Two, I think I can easily juggle, but then I will have to compromise a little bit on my social life. When I was not working when my kids were young, so I have not worked during my pregnancies. I haven't worked when my kids were around 2 years old. So at that time, yes, there was a lot of social life as well, so you could go out. But then as soon as I started to work, I had to make choices, and I made a choice on the social life. So kids, family, and work came first, then social life maybe not so much. So I would say that you will have to make a choice, and it does make an impact to the child. So you have to compensate doubly there.
So Nadia, you just said that you didn't work when you were, pregnant and maybe in the early, first 2 years of your kids, right? So
Yes.
did you struggle with the guilt of feeling, not useful? Because you're used to that feeling of, doing something, utilizing your time. During that time, did you somehow struggle with your self-esteem that way?
So look, the first year pregnancy was tough. Kudos to all women who work during pregnancy because my brain cells went completely dead, absolutely dead. I could barely process things. So yeah, I rested. I took care of my health at that time, and that was my priority. No, I did not feel wasted at all. It's also a time that I think women deserve to enjoy. There's a special bond that you build with your baby during those months. And the second one was, once the child is out, the first year you're like a zombie because you're hardly getting enough sleep. So I didn't feel that I was wasting anything. Yes, by the second year, the thing that started to happen was this doubt, self doubt, whether I will be able to find another job. So I was still very busy because, with a small kid, they're sometimes
Of course.
sick, they have their special times. I did not give them any uh, pre-made meals. Yeah, so basically everything was home cooked, and nutrition is a big focus for me. And I think this is one of the best ways women can contribute. So yeah, I did not feel useless, but I had self-doubt whether I would be able to get back into the corporate world.
So how did you build that confidence to get back into the corporate world?
I didn't. With that doubt, I continued to apply.
That is
I
such
didn't.
an honest response.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do? So I know this is a risk, and especially at that time. So I'll tell you, like strange stories. My first interview, and by the way, this actually happened with Nestle. Yeah, so my first interview with Nestle in Lums literally finished within the first 5 minutes because they asked me two questions and then they didn't want to interview me anymore. So the first question they asked me was, "Are you married or planning to get married?" And I said, "I'm married." And they asked me, "Where's your husband?" I said, "He's in Islamabad." He said, "Okay, thank you very much." And they ended the interview there.
Okay,
So I didn't even get a
that's
chance in that interview. And these are personal questions, and they made the choice at that time. This is back in 2002. Yeah, so much has changed. Then I went for an interview both with Unilever as well as P&G. P&G was just a test. They didn't even want to see me, which is fine because it's level playing field. You know what happened with me and Unilever? This person comes to me and said, "Look, you haven't worked for 2 years after graduation. Unfortunately, we can only offer you after your MBA a non-management role. Management roles cannot be given to you." And I was shocked. I said, I was a pretty good student. And they said, "Sorry, this is it." But I got an opportunity in PNG and just set me off very differently. And then I told you, like with my husband working, the conflict of interest. Oh, you have two kids, how will you work? So all of these things happen and they're asked. They were at least asked at that time in the interviews. And they are tough questions, and some people don't want you, but there are others. So, who took the first bet on me? The first bet was taken by P&G with a child. I was hired, and they took a full bet on me. Then the second bet was taken by actually Nestle. The same people who had asked me those tough questions, the same people who told me that there was conflict of interest, they gave me my biggest break into brands. My third break was given by Pepsi, the same people who told me there was conflict of interest. Yeah, so I see that we can't brand people because even within companies, people change and companies also evolve. So I am very grateful for these opportunities and these bets that people have taken. They could have gotten a much more steadier hand of a male over there who was committed 100% and maybe very proper career path to them as well. But they took a bet on me, and I'm really grateful for that.
so Nadia, एक और चीज जो मैं पूछूंगी आपसे, which is you worked with so many girls in Pakistan, right? I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure आपकी टीम में बहुत सी लड़कियां रही होंगी, and not
Hmm.
all of them have been fortunate enough to have studied from a place like Lums or
Hmm.
a place like where they could get some level of grooming and they could
Hmm.
develop some skill set like in terms of especially communication.
Hmm. Hmm.
और फिर उस चीज को मैंने नोटिस किया है स्पेशली इन द कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर इन पाकिस्तान कि वो फिर काफी कॉन्फिडेंस में पीछे रहती हैं. Their English is not that good, and that's supposedly a key skill that you're supposed to have to go ahead. And they sort of are underconfident, उनसे बात नहीं की जाती. और फिर लीडरशिप स्किल्स आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जैसे आपका एक्सपोजर बढ़ता जाता है, आप इफ यू आर अंडर कॉन्फिडेंट यू ऑलवेज रिमेन इन द बैकग्राउंड, राइट? So how do you suggest like these girls should sort of groom themselves? How should they train themselves to be in leadership roles?
ये बहुत अच्छा सवाल किया आपने अनम. मेरा ख्याल है कि बेसिकली इवन कम्युनिकेशन से पहले लड़कियों के लिए और ख़वातीन के लिए सोशल अडेप्टेबिलिटी इज़ अ बिग चैलेंज इन पाकिस्तान. क्यों? क्योंकि वो सिर्फ घरों में रही हुई होती हैं. तो जिस तरह अगर आप कोई बच्चा देखें, वो 10 साल की उम्र से गली की दुकान पे जाएगा, दुकानदार को मिलेगा, कोई 1-2 गली के बच्चे होंगे, किसी और के पास भेजेंगे आप उसको, मस्जिद में चला जाएगा. तो वो बेसिकली अपनी तरह के बहुत से और लोग और अपने से बड़े लोगों के साथ वो मिंगल कर रहा है और वो अपनी डेली की डीलिंग्स मैनेज कर रहा है. और ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट लाइफ स्किल है. और जब ख़वातीन और बच्चियाँ आती हैं इस लाइफ में, तो इस लाइन के अंदर, तो उनका उससे पहले सिर्फ घर पे बैठ के पढ़ने का एक्सपीरियंस होता है. और वो किसको मिलती हैं? अपने बहन भाइयों को, अपने माँ बाप को. सो दीज आर ऑल पीपल हु आर इन अ सेफ प्लेस. तो अपनी बात किस तरह से कहनी है, बाहर किस तरह से लोगों को अपनी बात पे कायल करना है, किस तरह से अलाइंसेस बनानी, यू गिव अ लिटिल बिट, यू गेट अ लिटिल बिट, ये बिल्कुल मिसिंग है. और ये सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है. तो अंग्रेज़ी से भी ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ बंदियों के लिए उनकी सोशल अडेप्टेबिलिटी है. वो आपस में भी इतनी अच्छे तरीके से घुल मिल नहीं सकती, क्योंकि वो सिर्फ अपनी कोई एक पसंदीदा सहेली के साथ या तो रहती हैं या दो, ठीक है. तो वो आपस में भी घुल मिल नहीं सकती. और ये मैंने बहुत चीज़ नोटिस की डिफरेंटली हियर, इसमें साउथ ईस्ट एशिया के अंदर. क्योंकि साउथ ईस्ट एशिया के अंदर अगर मैं कॉर्पोरेट वर्कफोर्स की बात करूँ तो 60% आर विमेन. मैं यहाँ
Oh,
पे
wow.
मार्केटिंग के अंदर बंदों के लिए डाइवर्सिटी का टारगेट डालती हूँ कि कम से कम 3 से 5 कोई लोग आ जाएं यहाँ पे जो कि मर्द हों. इतना ज़्यादा उसमें बहुत फ़र्क आता है. एक तो ये लोग जो हैं, क्योंकि वो इतने ज़्यादा ख़वातीन बाहर हैं, हर तरफ आप देखेंगे ख़वातीन हैं, वो अपनी बिजनेस चला रही हैं, वो छोटी दुकानें चला रही हैं, छोटे स्टॉल्स चला रही हैं, वो हेयर ड्रेसर हैं, वो हर, तो वो आपस में बातें बहुत अच्छी तरीके से कर सकती हैं और नेगोशिएट कर सकती हैं. और उसके अलावा बहुत सी और चीज़ों का फ़र्क पड़ता है. जिस तरह अगर आप कहीं दफ्तर में जाएं, ठीक है, और मैं गई हूँ और मैं आई सी अ फीमेल एंड आई कैन हग हर, ठीक है, या आई कैन शेक हैंड्स विद हर. मेरा डिफरेंट किस्म का बॉन्ड इस तरह के को-वर्कर के साथ बनता है. पाकिस्तान के अंदर ना आप करीब आ सकते हैं, ना आप कोई बात कर सकते हैं. तो बंदों का इसीलिए गैंग सा बन जाता है. दे सपोर्ट ईच अदर. ख़वातीन का नहीं है. तो मैं बहुत इनकरेज करूँगी सारे माँ बाप को और ऑल्सो यूनिवर्सिटीज़ को और ऑल्सो सारे मर्दों को कि प्लीज़ आपकी फैमिलीज़ में जितनी भी ख़वातीन हैं, बहनें हैं, बीवियाँ हैं, फ्रेंड्स हैं, उन सबको इनकरेज करें, उन सब की सोशल अडेप्टेबिलिटी के अंदर उनकी हेल्प करें. आप बेशक पीछे बैठे, लेकिन उनको थोड़ा सा एक टास्क दें कि वो ये काम कंप्लीट करके आ जाएं, ताकि उनके अंदर वो कॉन्फिडेंस आए. यहाँ से आता है कॉन्फिडेंस कि हम ये अपनी बातचीत कर सकते हैं और अपनी बात मनवा सकते हैं. इसी तरह जब वो वर्क एनवायरनमेंट में आएंगे, जब इस तरह की स्किल सेट्स के साथ, तो वो अपने टीम मेंबर्स के साथ, पीयर्स के साथ, डायरेक्ट रिपोर्ट्स के साथ बहुत अच्छे तरीके से डील कर सकते हैं. और फिर जो थोड़ी बहुत अंग्रेजी की बात रहेगी, तो वो तो कॉर्पोरेट्स के अंदर आपको पता है कि बहुत से कोर्सेज आपके ऐसे होते हैं दैट यू लर्न ऑन द वे. बट जो चीज़ एक्चुअली मिसिंग है ना, वो ये है, जो कि आपको एज अ सिम्टम नज़र आता है कि वो शायद कम्युनिकेशन का इशू है. नहीं, वो सोशल अडेप्टेबिलिटी का इशू है.
Nadia, इससे the next question that I wanted to ask was, you just talked about it a little bit, was that I have noticed too, there is always a sort of level of support amongst men for each other. वो एक दूसरे को भी support कर रहे होते हैं, and they're even sort of rooting for women too, like, but especially amongst women in Pakistan मैंने ये बहुत ज़्यादा देखा है, they never support each other. They're so competitive. एक तो गिनी चुनी औरतें होंगी आपके ऑफिस में, स्पेशली इन द पब्लिक सेक्टर तो एक दो ही होती हैं, कॉर्पोरेट में फिर भी ज्यादा होती हैं, बट दे आर रेयरली सपोर्टिव ऑफ ईच अदर्स ग्रोथ. एंड आई फेल टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई दैट हैपेंस. आई फेल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि ऐसा क्यों होता है. बट देन आई ऑल्सो फील लाइक ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा रीजन है कि औरतें आगे नहीं बढ़ती, बिकॉज वो एक दूसरे की ही बैक फाइटिंग एंड ट्राइंग टू टीयर ईच अदर डाउन. दैट जस्ट कीप्स हैपनिंग. व्हाई डू यू थिंक दैट हैपेंस?
मुझे लगता है इसका एवोल्यूशनरी रीज़न है. और इसकी वजह ये है कि बंदियाँ um, were created in a way they would be vying for maybe a certain man's attention. Resources were always scarce. You want to be the preferred person to have a child and be able to take care of it, because you won't be able to go hunting and care for yourself. So ये एक बहुत deep rooted evolutionary instinct है बंदियों के अंदर, जो कि हमारे सोशल स्ट्रक्चर के अंदर हमारी माओं के साथ हमारी जॉइंट फैमिलीज में और भी ज़्यादा सीमेंट हो चुकी भी होती है। और क्योंकि दूसरी सोशल अडेप्टेबिलिटी मैंने आपको जैसा मेंशन किया कि बंदियां एट अ यंग एज इवन बाहर खेलते हुए भी ना वो शेयर करती हैं, ना वो एक दूसरे का साथ देती हैं, गिव एंड टेक भी नहीं होता बहुत ज़्यादा। तो इसी माइंडसेट के साथ वो आती हैं। तो बहुत सी चीज़ें, हालांकि एट वर्क दैट पर्सन इज मे बी जस्ट अ लाइन मैनेजर, दैट इज नॉट द हस्बैंड, बट ही इज द होल्डर ऑफ मेनी ऑफ दोज रिसोर्सेज, दे स्टार्ट बिहेविंग एग्जैक्टली द सेम वे। सो ये एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है जिसको हमें कॉन्शियसली एड्रेस करना है कि वी आर women, yes, but we are not dependent on a man to unlock resources for us, and there is great strength. बहुत बहुत मतलब इसमें एक मजबूत बुनियाद बनती है खवातीन की जब वो एक दूसरे का साथ देती हैं. So I think this is something that women need to focus on, and it starts with firstly women in power, like senior leaders like me and others. We have to set the right precedent.
So that leads me to my next question. That's जो हमने पहले भी डिस्कस किया अभी रिकॉर्डिंग से पहले, वो ये है कि if God forbid a young girl faces harassment at workplace, how should she deal with that? Should she raise her voice? Should she leave that place? Or maybe if a young boy, it goes both ways, as we've just discussed. And
Yeah.
what do you think about that? How
हाँ, तो
should they
ये
deal with it?
अनम आपने बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन किया, मैं इसको थोड़ा ब्रॉडली फ्रेम करूंगी। एक तो ये कि हरासमेंट स्पेशली पाकिस्तान की सोसाइटी के अंदर बहुत परवेसिव है, बोथ बच्चियों और बच्चों के लिए। और ये तो मतलब मदर्स डिस्कस दिस वेरी ओपनली एज वेल नाउ, क्योंकि अब पता चलता है कि क्या क्या होता है। इवन हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ व्हेन दे टॉक अबाउट देयर चाइल्डहुड, तब पता चलता है कि इट्स नॉट इजी इवन फॉर बॉयज, यंग बॉयज आर आल्सो एक्सट्रीमली वल्नरेबल। तो मैं वहीं से शुरू करूंगी, क्योंकि दोज प्रिंसिपल्स आई थिंक आल्सो अप्लाई इन वर्क लाइफ एज वेल। सो जब भी कोई बच्चा किसी इस तरह की सिचुएशन से एक्सपोज होता है, तो पहली चीज़ ये इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि टिल द टाइम दे आर एबल टू कोप विद इट, वो उस डेंजरस सिचुएशन से बाहर निकलें। So they need to confide in somebody that they can trust. And even if it means taking a bit of break to get yourself together in terms of what your game plan is going to be, that is important. Don't stay there. Because सबसे important आपकी safety है. Your mental and physical safety is the first priority. So I would suggest कि आप थोड़ा सा time off लो या जो भी करना है to avoid that situation. उसके बाद think about your options. कुछ चीज़ें होती हैं जो कि आप इमीडिएटली उसको अवॉइड कर सकते हो, ठीक है, या बता सकते हो उसके बारे में। एंड आई वुड फर्स्टली इनकरेज एवरीबडी कि प्लीज़ इसके बारे में आप ज़रूर बात करें, क्योंकि आप अगर बात करोगे मे बी सम अदर पीपल आर ऑल्सो इम्पैक्टेड बाई इट, या ये चीज़ निकलेगी। ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि यू आर द ओनली पर्सन गोइंग थ्रू दिस, इट मे बी हैपनिंग इन अदर प्लेसेस टू। तो थोड़ी सी करेज लेके अपने लिए और अपनी तरह के लोगों के लिए आप प्लीज़ आवाज़ उठाओ। However, situations are different for different people. If you find yourself in this type of a thing, reduce that type of situation where you are alone in that situation, or उसका long term fix ढूंढें to move out, because आपकी अपनी it takes a huge toll. आपको उस वक्त रियलाइज नहीं होगा, लेकिन आपके बहुत से और रिलेशनशिप्स भी इसकी वजह से इम्पैक्ट होंगे। योर एबिलिटी टू ट्रस्ट इज एक्चुअली severely impacted by it. Your feeling of safety is severely impacted by it. तो ये एक ऐसी सिचुएशन है, आप इसको एक डिजीज की तरह समझें, यू हैव टू गेट आउट ऑफ इट। सो रिपोर्ट इट and then get out of it, or if you can't report it, at least get some cover and then get out of it. So ये तो मेरा overall view है इसके बारे में। However, as I was mentioning to you, Anam, जितना मैंने खैर मकदम किया था इस term का कि harassment की definition being in terms of versus the act, just the perceived harassment, I thought it was a great idea, और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि somebody finally understood from a woman's perspective. बट उन्हीं सालों के अंदर ये 5-6 सालों के अंदर मैंने खास करके अपर मिडिल और अपर क्लास की बंदियों के अंदर इस तरह के इंस्टेंसेस देखे हैं where this has been used against men. And they have come at times of where a promotion was supposed to be given or a rating came out और ये दोनों तरह से इस्तेमाल हुआ है. So it's not as if women are saints. I think उसका by a certain sector misuse भी हुआ है to the detriment of men, and they also have families, and it's a very tough situation to be in. So ये बहुत बड़ी responsibility है, and I think as companies, as nations, we have to be fair, because अगर हमने किसी भी एक के साथ ज्यादती कर दी तो उसका बहुत बुरा इम्पैक्ट होता है. सबसे ज़्यादा vulnerable actually from a harassment perspective are blue collar jobs के अंदर बंदियाँ and also young kids, both boys and girls. यहाँ पे from a legislation perspective, from a rules perspective, बहुत safety security की ज़रूरत है, and I do not think enough work has been done here. Whereas corporate ladder के अंदर जो बंदियाँ हैं वहाँ पे भी होता है ये. I mean it's not as if it's not there, but उसका misuse भी है. So I just want to put that on the table.
And I'd like to quote one of the instances when I realized how harassment can be misused. If if you allow.
हाँ हाँ please Anam, बिल्कुल I would like to know more about this. Yes.
So I was always, very vocal about harassment at work and how women should deal with it. And in one of the cases, I was sitting with one of my bosses and we were just having a conversation, and I trust that boss.
Hmm.
And there was a lady who entered the office, and my
Hmm.
boss just like asked me to keep sitting. And I thought they
Hmm.
had a meeting, so
Hmm.
I wanted to leave.
Hmm.
But he was scared of the fact that she would accuse him of harassment. So
Ah,
he just wanted me to sit there as a witness. And that's when I
absolutely.
realized that this can be taken and used in a very negative way by women as well. So,
Yes.
yes, I completely agree with you on that. Uh,
No, it is.
and and Nadia, so just like you, इसी conversation से मैं flow करूँगी. आपने अभी कहा it takes a toll on your sanity, right? So there must have been a time in your life when you were, completely torn down by, maybe a rejection from an interview, maybe a point where you were applying and not getting a position, maybe somewhere when you were at your lowest. And how did you deal with that? Because I think वो बहुत से लोगों को inspire कर सकता है, to not lose hope.
Hmm. So look, इस तरह के तो बहुत से मौके होते हैं ज़िंदगी में, but I think पहला is not work related. I think पहला is my first pregnancy, जिसके अंदर I did not take care of my health and I was extremely weak, and I was just overwhelmed with the task of taking care of a child, being undernourished myself, literally like a skeleton, and I didn't know where to start and how to start fixing things. So that was a low point. And from there onwards, my focus towards nutrition really started building for myself to become stronger and to be able to live a full and active life, and also for my child. So ये एक लो पॉइंट था जिसका रिजल्ट ये हुआ कि मेरा न्यूट्रिशन के ऊपर बहुत फोकस रहा है और अभी भी है. और दूसरा मेरा लो पॉइंट वाज एक्चुअली इन नेस्ले, और नेस्ले के अंदर मेरी एक मीटिंग हुई थी अपने उस टाइम के सीईओ के साथ, और उसके अंदर द मीटिंग गॉट रियली हीटेड, एंड लाइक बंदों की आवाज़ें बहुत ऊंची होती हैं, एंड दिस पर्सन वाज अ साउथ अफ्रीकन, and it got to such a level that I started crying in that meeting, and it was really bad. And when I came out, at one thought was कि I'm gonna yeah, write a note कि इस तरह से कोई तरीका है ये बात करने का, whatever. But then I calmed myself down a little bit, and then I wrote a apology letter to all people there for breaking down like that, because उसका impact बाकी लोगों के ऊपर भी होता है. और मुझे रियलाइजेशन ये हुई कि जिस तरह से मुझे अच्छा लगता है कि द एनवायरनमेंट इज इन सच अ वे दैट अ वुमन कैन एक्सप्रेस हरसेल्फ, बंदों के केस में दे आर आल्सो इमोशनल एंड पैशनेट ह्यूमन बीइंग्स, एंड उनकी गुस्सा और आवाज़ भी होती है. तो मुझे लगता है कि हमें एक दूसरे को एक्सेप्ट करने की ज़रूरत है. इसके अंदर देयर वाज नथिंग व्हिच वाज लाइक अ पर्सनल अफरंट. मुझे सिर्फ उस बंदे की ऊंची आवाज़ से इतना डर लगा I just started crying. And I felt really weak and embarrassed. मैं घर आई हूँ, मैं घर भी रोती रही हूँ. And I remember my husband finding me this क्या कहते हैं magazine article at that time to cheer me up and give me some confidence कि like a lot of people can get scared, but it is okay. It doesn't mean that you're weak. So अगले दिन I was back in office, but that was a low point for me because मैं इतनी ज़्यादा embarrassed कभी नहीं हुई कि मैं ऐसे सब लोगों के सामने फूट फूट के रोना शुरू हो जाऊँ.
It takes a lot of courage to share, your lowest times with somebody and so many people. And so I'm really grateful that, you're being so honest and you're sharing everything with us. And actually, I can feel it when you're telling the whole story. I can actually, remember my own instances. Oh my God, I cried in a meeting like that. And maybe I could have never shared it that way with people the way you did. So I'm really, really thankful to you for that. And
No
that
worries.
just,
And it's age as well. You're young right now. उस वक्त लगता है कि बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है. But when you come to my age, it doesn't matter.
you look very young, so
Yeah, it's a camouflage. I'm an old soul. Hmm.
Nadia, so this brings me to the last, just last question. What's your message for younger girls who are watching?
My message to girls in Pakistan in particular कि अपने अंदर बिलीफ पैदा करें और अपने पाँव पे खड़े हों और अपने आप को बेहतर से बेहतर बनाएं एंड बी अ सपोर्ट फॉर योर सेल्फ एज वेल एज योर फैमिली. दूसरों पे डिपेंडेंट ना हो और अपनी गलतियाँ माने, उनको ठीक करें. कीप मूविंग ऑन, दैट्स व्हाट लाइफ इज़. लेकिन इस जर्नी पे ज़रूर चलें. एक बहुत अच्छी मतलब आसान लगती है एक पैम्पर्ड सी ज़िंदगी अम्मी अब्बा के घर पे, अपने मियाँ के घर पे, अपने आगे बच्चों के घर पे. बट रियली उससे आपकी शख्सियत ख़त्म हो जाती है. एंड आई थिंक अल्लाह ने आपको अगर ये ज़िंदगी दी है तो लिव इट टू द फुलेस्ट. Try your very best, make a few mistakes, and enjoy a few of the things that you have done versus celebrating only the wins of your fathers, your brothers, your husbands, and your sons.
Thank you so much for that, Nadia. I'm again thankful. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Anam. I'll see ya.
Allah
Bye.
Hafiz. Bye.
Allah Hafiz.